Tonight, you will probably feel it. That itch. That restless need to check your phone for no reason at all. You call it boredom. But here's the strange part. Your ancestors felt almost none of it. Not because their lives were exciting. Their lives were slow. Hours of walking, hours of waiting, hours of doing nothing that looked like anything. And yet the modern restlessness that drives you to scroll, snack, and fidget barely existed in their world. Why? The answer is not what you think. For decades, anthropologists assumed early humans spent almost every waking hour fighting for survival. Hunting, gathering, starving, struggling. It made sense. It fit the story we tell about the past. A brutal grind, sunrise to sunset, just to stay alive. Then in 1966, an anthropologist named Marshall Sahlins stood in front of a room of his peers and said something that broke that story apart. He called it the theory of the original affluent society. His claim was simple and almost insulting to modern ears. Hunter-gatherers, he argued, worked less than you do. Far less. Sahlins looked at data from groups like the Juhuansi of the Kalahari and found something nobody expected. Adults spent around 15 to 20 hours a week on actual subsistence work, finding food, preparing it, that's it. The rest of their waking hours belonged to them. 15 hours. Think about your own week. Now ask yourself what you do with the other hours when no one is watching. Decades later, researchers Hilliard Kaplan and Frank Marlowe tested this idea more rigorously among groups like the Aish of Paraguay and the Hadza of Tanzania. Their findings echoed Sahlins. Foraging societies were not grinding endlessly. They had enormous stretches of unstructured time, time with no task, time with nothing demanding their attention. So here's the real question. What did they do with it? They talked. For hours. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the Juhuansi and found that during the day, conversation revolved around practical matters. Who found what? Where the animals had moved? Small disputes, useful, transactional talk. But at night, everything changed. Around the fire, after the work was done, the talk shifted into something else entirely. Stories. Long, looping, fantastical stories about ancestors, tricksters, distant lands, moral lessons wrapped in myth. Wiesner found that over 80% of nighttime conversation was storytelling, not gossip, not logistics, story. This is the part that should stop you. Boredom, as you experience it, did not exist in that firelight. There was idle time, plenty of it, but it was never empty. It was filled with narrative, with connection, with imagination stretched out loud in front of other people. Compare that to your evening. Empty time arrives, and what fills it? A screen, a feed designed by engineers to capture your attention for as long as biologically possible. No fire, no faces lit by flame, no collective story being built in real time. Just you, alone, staring into a glowing rectangle that gives you fragments instead of narrative. Your brain was not built for fragments. It was built for fire circles. Idle hours were also spent on something else, almost invisible to us now. Skill refinement. Watch a Hadza child for an afternoon with nothing scheduled, and you will see them whittling, practicing throws with a small bow, mimicking adults stripping bark or tracking prints in the dirt. Anthropologist Elizabeth Cashton described how unstructured time among foragers wasn't wasted time, it was rehearsal time. Children played their way into competence. There were no boredom-proof toys, no screens to babysit attention, just open hours and the freedom to practice being human in increasingly skilled ways. This raises an uncomfortable mirror for you. When was the last time you filled empty time by practicing a skill just because you could? Or do you fill it by consuming something someone else made as fast as possible until the empty feeling fades? Here's where it gets even stranger. Some researchers now argue that boredom itself is not ancient at all. It may be a relatively modern invention. Psychologist Andreas Elpidorou, who has spent years studying the function of boredom, suggests that boredom evolved as a signal. A nudge. A discomfort meant to push you towards something more meaningful than whatever you're currently doing. In a hunter-gatherer's world, that nudge had somewhere obvious to go. Toward the fire, toward the story, toward the half-finished spear or the next foraging trip. The discomfort had a clear target. In your world, the nudge fires constantly, but the target is gone. You feel restless, and the nearest exit is your phone. The discomfort is the same ancient signal. But the landscape it was built for has vanished. This is the mismatch. Your brain is still operating on hunter-gatherer software, expecting idle time to be filled with social bonding, storytelling, and skill build. Instead, it gets infinite scroll, optimized to feel like connection without ever quite delivering it. No wonder you feel hollow after an hour of scrolling. You gave your ancient boredom signal modern junk food instead of the meal it was looking for. So what do you do with this? You do not need a campfire. You do not need a hunting bow. What you need is closer than that. Idle time was never meant to be empty. It was meant to be social, narrative, and skill building, a conversation with no agenda. A story told out loud instead of typed. An old hobby picked back up not for productivity, but because your hands and mind were built to want something to do with their freedom. The next time that restless itch arrives, pause before you reach for the glowing rectangle. Ask what your ancestors would have reached for instead. A person, a story, a half-built thing waiting to be finished. Tonight, you will probably feel it again. That itch, that restless need to check your phone for no reason at all. But now you know its name. It is not boredom. It is an ancient signal, still firing, still searching for the fire that used to be there.